In exactly 1 year, there's going to be a vote to change Maine's state flag from this thing, which I think we can all agree it's fine if this goes away, to a new flag, but it's not a new design. It's Maine's old flag from 1901, and look at this thing. It slaps. When I started Flags for Good in 2020, I had never seen or heard of this 1901 flag of Maine. And when we started selling our version of it, it became one of the top selling flags that we offered. And I was so confused. So finally, I've come to the pine tree state to see what all the fuss around this pine tree flag is about. Listen, I'm not going to go into the explanation of the current flag of Maine because it's just one of the 20 plus seals on a bed sheet that you can find all over America. What I want to know is the history of this tan beauty and why it was taken away, but yet still lives on literally everywhere. Back in 1901, the Maine legislature stated that the state flag should be a buff color, which is kind of like tan. Then on it is charged with the state emblem, which is a pine tree. And then in the upper hoist corner, a blue pole star. That's it. They say anything with those elements is considered a state flag of Maine. Like anything. Do you see how there's a lot of area for interpretation? Since there's a lot of vagueness around what this pine tree should look like, we should probably look back at the earliest flags that we have. And the guy that owns the oldest one in Maine, who's been trying to bring this 1901 flag back since before I was born, I have his phone number.
I'm David Martucci. I live in Washington, Maine, and I've attempted to have the 1901 flag of Maine reestablished by the legislature a number of times, 5 times since 1991.
Dave is the real deal. He is the leading expert on the 1901 flag of Maine. He owns one of the oldest versions in existence, and he was the president of the North American Vexillological Association, held the highest seat in all of flag nerdery. He is who I want to be when I grow up. Surely this established vexillologist has an opinion on this, or has a design that he thinks should be the official flag of Maine.
The wording allows a lot of variation, so people can create their own flags with their own design for a tree, and every one of them would be perfectly legal. I appreciate the fact that people can come up with their own variation, their own interpretation of what that symbol is supposed to look like, and I think that's actually a dynamic fact and feature. I think having the ability to interpret the design to a specific thing that the maker wants to do is absolutely fine, and there's a lot of tradition behind that.
This part threw me for a loop because the vexillologist in me desperately wants there to be one official flag. See my entire Colorado video about that. But then Dave just kept talking, and as he did, I started to see the beauty in the vagueness.
And it was a fact and feature of early American flags. You'd have, say, stars and stripes, but the stars would be arranged differently on everybody's flag, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The standardization of flag designs is purely a 20th century invention. Personal preference as to what exact pattern you have is fine with me. I think that's a good thing because I think it will result in more flags being flown.
So there's 2 real groupings of these types of Maine flags. There's the detailed flag with the roots and the branches and all, but then there's this simpler flag that draws its inspiration from the maritime flag, like these ones at Original Maine Shop, and of course the ones we make at Flags for Good. I personally prefer this one, but I had to ask David what he preferred.
Okay, so that was my political self. This is my historian self. The historian in me prefers the roots and the branches because they have very important symbolism. The designer of the flag General John Richards, who was the Quartermaster General of the state of Maine at the time. He had a design made up that showed a very realistic tree with 2 cut-off branches and 3 roots. The tree represents the people of Maine. The 3 roots represent the government structure that supports them. And then the 2 cut-off branches represent the 2 parts of Maine's territory that were lost, New Hampshire in 1629 and northern Madawaska in 1842. I think if people understand what they mean, there'll be more flags flown with those included.
We at Flags for Good have been selling the Maine flag for like 2.5 years, and my employees and I have always had a fight over what's the correct color of this buff, this brownish tan. So of course, as I'm sitting in front of the man himself, I had to ask Dave, am I right?
So the color buff goes back to the American Revolutionary period. And the buff color was intended to represent tanned deer hide. And that was intended to mean you were standing stiff for American independence. When you want to get down to what is the actual color, well, deer hide, when it's tanned, can be anywhere from pure white to almost black. So really, any shade in there you want to use actually fits in with the definition of the color.
So there's no defined color buff. There's no official tree, and I don't even think that it says that the star needs to have 5 points on it necessarily.
The law doesn't specify any of that.
This all should be bugging the crap out of me, but for some reason, as I've traveled around this state, I've come to sort of appreciate all of the variations and the vagueness of all of this. In fact, I think a lot of the creativity that this allows is what brought this thing back from the dead.
The interest in it in the commercial sector grew. And one of the things that everybody discovered was if you put an item with the current Maine coat of arms on it or the pine tree and star, most people are going to buy the pine tree and star.
What this debate in Maine shows is a very simple principle. When a flag has a seal on it, it feels very official, but it feels like it just represents the government. The people want a flag to show off how proud they are of their state, and when their state flag doesn't cut it, they will usually go and find a flag that does. The best state flags do both things, represent the government and the people. So next year, Dave might have to endure a 6th attempt to make this thing official. But you know what I think? I don't think it matters. Because go to any home, look at any gift shop. This is the flag of Maine, and the government can just get on board if they want to at this point.
The fact of the matter is that when you drive around this state, you're going to more likely see the 1901 flag than you are going to see the blue flag with the coat of arms, almost guaranteed. And so you could say that the people of Maine have already voted by flying the flag they want to fly, and that's not going to stop. If the referendum doesn't pass, that's not going to stop. You're still going to see that, and you'll probably see more of them, and that's just the way it is.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Is that enough energy?
Yeah.
All right. Well, to show how proud they are of their state, and when their state whew, I caught that.
Yeah.
I don't need to explain shit. Oldest one in existence. Of course, there's a Southwest jet landing as I'm trying to do this.